Let's look at this statement that came from Tanko Yakasai, of course, another statesman from the northern part of the country, who will be clocking 100 years very soon. He was asked whether Nigeria could return to regional system of government. Let's look at his response together and we do the analysis as we go forward. He said, "You are aware I'm almost 100 years old. I was born on December 5th, 1925. He said, I know what is possible and what is not. He go further to say that I don't think regional government is possible again in Nigeria. He said, we tried it in the past and we all know how it ended. The country has moved on since then, so we can't go back. He go further to say that how many people genuinely are canvassing for a return to the past in this area? Not. Take note of that, his emphasis. He said how many people are canvassing for a return to the regional system of government in the north. He go further to say that we must move with the times progressively. It is part of development. He's saying that how many people are genuinely seeking for regional system of government in the north? Is it just about the north or about the generality of the people? I must say that it is never too late if regional system of government is a panacea to solve all the myriad of challenges we're having in this country. But I can specifically say that most of the problems we seek to solve today were already solved by Abuja Accord. If Gowan had allowed the Abuja Accord to stand. But currently, we are seeking for state police. We are seeking for how to solve the issue of insecurity occasioned by Fulani militias. And if we had allowed state police from that Abuja Accord, by now, the country would have evolved to the point that security would have been well managed by the regions. So I think I totally disagree with that position that we cannot go back to regional system of government. I want to say that once it comes to anything that has to do with rejigging the current status quo, the North will always oppose it. And I think the reason is not far-fetched. They are the greater beneficiary of the current fraudulent status quo. As we have it, recently, federal government under this Tinubu administration wanted to restructure the taxation system, wanted to restructure revenue sharing formula, talking about when they brought issue of tax reform bills. And part of the major area they wanted to reform has to do with ensuring that areas that produce, areas that consume are adequately compensated with revenue. To even encourage other areas to look inward and see what they can bring to the table. But I want to say that the North vehemently rose against it. Because according to them, the idea was meant to deplete their revenue base. As we have it, they use their number in the National Assembly to expunge those areas before they eventually pass the bill which Tinubu later assented to. So the version that the president assented to currently, we have a situation where those areas that did not fit was against their interests, was expunged. Now I begin to ask, how did they get the number to do this? It was in it was the military that created the states that gave them that undue advantage. And that undue advantage is what they always use to oppose any area they feel you want to address or rather rejig that is going to make you correct the imbalance in the system. That's why I'm saying that it's never too late if regionalism is the way to go to give us solution to the myriad of challenges we are facing. Because personally, I have experience with the North because I served in Jigawa State during the youth service. And in Jigawa State, for instance, if you are, as at then, I don't know the situation now, if you are posted to local government, there is a common saying, Baiki, meaning no work. What happens is the local government chairman, all the local government staff don't come to work. They only appear at the end of the month. And once they come, that is when the allocation comes. Everybody will collect his salary and everybody disappears. It's a monthly ritual. They wait for at the end of the next month. We are meant to understand then that the local government chairman was staying in Kano. He only show up at the end of the month where the allocation comes. Now I begin to ask, if there is a system in place that seeks to address how revenue is shared, and it will affect those local governments in that state, they will resist with the last drop of their blood. Because this is a local government system that is basically inactive. It's not functional. They are only leveraging on federal allocation. And if they are leveraging on federal allocation and perhaps people come to work on daily basis to even think out of the box how they could even do other things, maybe to generate more revenue through internally generated revenue, it's a different thing. But I tell you that basically, weed takes over the local government secretariat. As at then, it was the coppers who, through their weekly development activities in the localities, go to clear the white grasses that normally takes over the secretariat. So any attempt to reject that system that will make you generate what you consume, I want to say that they will resist it. That's why I continue maintaining that the North is the beneficiary of the current fraudulent status quo. And they will always use every means to resist any attempt to reject it. Because if when you wanted to create the states, you brought everybody on board to discuss it, I don't think we'll have what we have currently. And even if you even go and look at the current status quo of the constitution, you understand that the constitution was equally imposed on Nigerians. And every attempt to get a people's-oriented constitution that will reflect the interests of the people is always resisted. Because it was the military that state-managed the constitution, the right of the constitution, and it was not, the people were not consulted. And if you go into the preamble of the constitution, it will tell you that we, the people of Nigeria, came together to write it. That is the greatest fraud as far as I'm concerned. So for me, it's never too late if the idea of state or rather regionalism will solve the problems we are facing. Is never too late. Because currently we have a situation where even the governors in their respective states complain that they cannot control the security architecture in their respective states, and they can clearly see their environment, their state being ravaged by insecurity occasioned by Fulani militias, banditry. It is even of recent that even the president have come out to make bold move to say we are going to empower forest guards to give them arm to enable them combat banditry. I even recall that even recently in the time of Muhammadu Buhari as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, every attempt to make security arrangement at the state level to be armed was resisted through the Office of National Security Advisor. Because we understand that for you to even procure arm and bear arm in that capacity, you need an extra certificate that normally comes from the Office of the National Security Advisor. And these security arrangements at the state level could not achieve under Muhammadu Buhari. I could remember the then governor of Ondo State, Akeredolu, rest in peace, who was always a loggerhead with the then Buhari's government. Because he questioned that if you could allow civilian JTF in the north to be armed, what stops you from allowing Amateku in the southwestern part of the country that are a creation of the Act of State House of Assembly in the southwestern part of the country? So for me, I think it is not too late to address most of these things. We are going to think of it. Why should they not be having 19 states as against the 17 in the southern part of the country? And if you now raise issue of let us balance it, somebody will come and tell you, go to the National Assembly. Go and make your case. And they already have their number in the National Assembly, which is unduly given to them by the military who created the states. I begin to ask, why in the southeastern part of the country having just 5 states as a region, whereas the southeastern part of the country, the Igbos are a major ethnic group in Nigeria. Because we are talking about major ethnic groups in Nigeria, you talk about the Yorubas, the Igbos, the Hausa. Whereas in some regions, almost all the regions have at least six states. I understand that it was during Abacha regime that they broke Nigeria into regions equally in Northerner. So why did they not give Southeast, the Igbos, up to 6 states? And every attempt to address the imbalance is always resisted. Because someone will tell you, go to the National Assembly. And if you raise issue in the National Assembly, someone will tell you, I need state in my own region. So that is why, as a people, we must think of how to control being together in terms of reworking the Constitution. For me, I think the best time we could have done this is during the confab of 2014. But unfortunately, the Jonathan government did not show enough willpower to address that. I understand some people will say he didn't have enough time. Some people will say he lacked the willpower. Some people will say, of course, that he was actually playing politics because he did that at the twilight of his administration, perhaps because he wanted to get vote from the southern part of the country. That's why he wanted to use that to placate them. But the important thing is that we need something of that nature. I understand that the result of that confab is still gathering dust in the shape of federal government. But the point here is, this government of Senator Amebola Tinubu, I encourage this government to think in that direction. Even if they are not interested in going to dust on those files, they could equally convene another sovereign national conference for a national discourse. Because at times I begin to ask, why do people agitate? These are part of the reason why we see agitation. And at times, you see that the government spends so much money in addressing agitation because when it turns violent, of course, government need money to buy arms and all of that to combat it. But these are things you could address through dialogue, through national conference. I saw recently in the National Assembly where senators from the southeastern part of the country were complaining that in the last 12 years, dams in the region have not gotten federal government attention. Whereas in some other regions, you can clearly see 60 billion being allocated to dams. And the best the leadership of the House could tell them is to be careful the way they address issue of budgetary allocation. Okay, I think that came from a member anyway, but I think the leadership acknowledged them that they will tell the executive arm of government that actually have the mandate to do all of that, and that perhaps it's an omission. That is the best they could tell them. And as we speak, it's not on record that have been corrected. And for me, there is no need looking for peace other than doing the right thing to get peace. As far as I'm concerned, the Southeast is heavily marginalized. The Igbos are heavily marginalized. But if you even go into this area that has to do with governance, producing the president of the country, you understand that if we even look at the tacit agreement between the North and the South that says that if you not govern for 8 years, the South will govern for 8 years. Come to think of it, the South have governed for 6 years under former President Goodluck Jonathan. The Southwest already governed for 8 years under the former president of Olusegun Obasanjo. As you have it, the Southeast have not governed since this nascent democracy. So it makes sense to say, if we are looking at North and South divide, and the North have governed for 8 years, it makes sense to say that let the Southeast govern and represent the South for national cohesion, equity, and justice. It is my opinion anyway, but I think it's the right thing to do. Because if you see people agitating for secession in the region, I think people should begin to ask and look inward. What is the cause of this agitation? I want to believe that this is part of the agitation, and that if we see, if all this imbalance is addressed, I want to believe that the agitation will come down. I will say very big thank you for your time. This is Sadler.